the Endurance, which is arguably the most famous Antarctic exploration ship in history, having been crushed by the Antarctic ice and sunk in 1915, and being lost for more than a century until it was discovered in March of last year. When she was discovered on March 5th, 2022, it was found that the ship was in great preservation, despite being underwater for almost 107 years. The story of the Endurance begins 3 years before she was even sunk. The ship was built for the Framnes Mekanis shipyard at Sandefjord, Norway, originally named the Polaris, after the North Star. She was launched on December 17, 1912, and entered service at the end of that year. The ship was 144 feet, or 44 meters long, and 350 gross register tons. She was originally built as a steam yacht designed to take people to Arctic regions, and she had space for 10 passengers. Her hull was made of wood. Even though steel was at the time the usual materials for ocean liners, ships like the Polaris were still made of wood because it could break the ice and not be crushed by the ice. The Polaris was originally owned by Adrian de Gulac and Lars Christensen, until January of 1914, when the Polaris was sold to the Irish explorer Ernest Shackleton for £14,000 and renamed her the Endurance. Then Shackleton had the ship brought to London for a refit, and then she was put back into service. On August 8, 1914, Endurance departed Plymouth in England bound for Antarctica. On the way, she stopped at Buenos Aires in Argentina and stopped in South Georgia. On December 5, 1914, Endurance departed South Georgia bound for the coast of Antarctica. On December 7th, 2 days after she left South Georgia, the Endurance encountered pack ice while she was sailing through the Weddell Sea. Because of how thick the ice was, the ship was only able to move about 30 miles or 48 kilometers per day. But then, on January 15th, the ship was around 200 miles from her destination. But the next day, pack ice became too thick, and the Endurance got stuck in the ice. Because of the thickness of the ice, the ship could not move forward. The Endurance was now stuck fast. After days of trying to get the ship free from the ice, on February 17th, the Antarctic summer had just ended. Now it was winter. Because of that, the crew decided to wait out the Atlantic winter. The following month, the ice that the Endurance was trapped in started to drift, and the Endurance started to drift along with the ice. In July of that year, a gale swept the Endurance north, and pieces of the ice started to break off. But as the weeks passed, the ice continued to push harder and harder until on August 31st, when the pressure became too much and the Endurance's hull started to get crushed. The wind beams began to snap, and it was clear that the Endurance was going to sink. On October 16th, Shackleton ordered the ship's boilers to be heated up in order to slow the rate of flooding. But over the next month or so, the Endurance kept slowly flooding until, in the late afternoon of November 21st, 1915, the Endurance finally sank after over 10 months of being crushed by the ice. And all of that was captured by the expedition's photographer, Frank Hurley. Crew then took the 3 lifeboats from the ship and tried to pull them across the ice. However, the coast of the Weddell Sea was over 300 miles or 480 kilometers away. It took several months before the expedition team was able to make it to the coast of the Weddell Sea, but when they did in April of 1916, they sailed the lifeboats across the Weddell Sea to Elephant Island, which was an uninhabited island. But the team then decided to sail to an inhabited island several hundred miles north called South Georgia Island, and the crew made several attempts to make a few more trips back to Elephant Island to rescue those still there. In the 4th attempt to get to Elephant Island, the Chilean government sent the tug Yelko to assist. Everyone from the failed Endurance expedition survived and were soon taken back to the UK. Over the course of the late 1990s and early 2000s, several attempts were made to search for Endurance's wreck, but none were successful. In 1998, a wreck believed to be the Endurance was found south of Elephant Island. However, after the wreck was examined, it was said that the wreck was not the Endurance, but the sealing ship Charles Shearer, which sank in 1877. In 2001 and 2003, 2 more attempts were made to find the wreck, but still, none were successful. In 2018, a year-long expedition was made to find the Endurance, but just like the other attempts on the list, was not successful when the expedition's AUV was lost in the Antarctic ice. In July of 2021, the Falklands Maritime Heritage Trust issued Endurance-22, an expedition using a Saab submersible that was to start in early 2022. Then, finally, after almost 107 years of being lost, the Endurance's wreck was discovered on March 5, 2022, which was exactly a century after Ernest Shackleton's funeral in March of 1922. On March 9th, the Falkland Islands Maritime Heritage Trust released the information to the press. The wreck was discovered at a depth of 9,869 feet, or 3,008 meters, and is in remarkably good preservation. Falkland Islands Maritime Heritage Trust issued a treaty that said that no items should be recovered from the wreck, and protected by the treaty and distance from the shore. The wreck will probably be intact for several more decades to come. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss any new uploads from this channel. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.